So, good morning everybody. Welcome back again. Again, we are back for one of the exciting sessions as far as UPSC Civil Service Examination is concerned. And since we are dealing with the different aspects of the history, which is one of the most important subjects to crack the UPSC, within history now, we are going to focus one of the most important area, always an evergreen area, which assures a success for candidate from any background, and that area is known as ancient and medieval history. Why? Because as we can see, UPSC has clearly mentioned about the Indian history as far as the syllabus for both the prelims and main examination is concerned. And since Indian history is a very vast dimension, so as a part of sequential evolution of our history, one of the greatest historical legacy of the world, ancient and medieval period forms a background, it forms a backbone as far as the whole history of India is concerned. If you see, out of total 5,000 plus years of history which India has as a part of cultural legacy, a civilization legacy, we can easily see that the ancient history of India, it goes back and lasts for 3,500 years. The medieval history of India, it will last for 1,000 plus years, precisely 1,000 to 1,200 years. And it is only the modern history of India which has basically formed the part of Indian history in the last 200 years. Just before independence, the last 200 years or 190 years to be precise, they basically are covered by the modern history. Of course, we have to keep in mind that from the exam perspective, the weightage of the modern history is very high. In fact, the highest weightage is given by the UPSC for modern history. But the point is that without studying and without understanding the ancient and medieval history and its various dimensions, and as we can normally say that history is a change with continuity. So how ultimately India came towards this modern Indian history era, that will become clear only with the help of ancient and medieval history. And that's why it becomes very, very important that we should have a full command as far as ancient and medieval history is concerned. And once we have that full command over the ancient and medieval history, then obviously we will see that we are going to easily tackle the modern history also. Since as I am mentioning that history is very sequential, so when we understand the chain of events which took place right since the ancient era of India till the modern era, then our clarity of thought and our clarity of the facts, our clarity of the analytical understanding of the history becomes very, very thorough. And that is what we have to master. That is what we have to command. That is what we have to adapt. And this is where we are now going to discuss. So just like the first two sessions, the very exciting sessions, again we can see all the dimensions in which and through which the history has to be studied for the UPSC. And as we discussed in the first two sessions, our first session dealt with the world history, the second session dealt with the post-independence history of India. And both these sessions, they were also very important, very exciting, and very necessary to develop our overall understanding, the holistic understanding, the comprehensive approach. But one thing which was common there was that both these sessions and both these topics which were discussed in these sessions, they are associated only with the main examination. Okay, so as we have discussed that world history and post-independence history, that is a part of a main examination. Prelims, we don't have the world history, and prelims we don't have the post-independence history. But the session today we are going to discuss and the topic which we are going to discuss, that is ancient and medieval history, that is the part and parcel of the history of India as a whole. Right? And UPSC has clearly mentioned that ancient and medieval history will be asked both in a prelims as well as mains. Right? This very first thing we have to keep in mind, and from this is where, and this is the vantage point from where we are going to start the session. Right? So we can see here again. First thing what we have to keep in mind, as a part of syllabus, both ancient and medieval history will be the part of pre plus mains. Both in a prelims as well as mains, we are going to witness the ancient as well as medieval history. This point we have to be very clear of. So once we know that the ancient as well as the medieval history will be the part of prelims as well as mains, then we have to keep in mind, and the logical question which will come to our mind is that what is the weightage? Okay? What is the weightage of these both ancient as well as medieval history? So as far as the prelims is concerned, I can show you on an average 15 to 20 questions are asked by UPSC on Indian history as a whole in a prelims. Right? Indian history as a whole. Okay, this is the case. So out of these 15 to 20 questions, 8 to 10 questions will be asked on ancient plus medieval. Okay. And nowadays there is a new trend in last 3 or 4 years. What UPSC is doing? UPSC basically has started asking 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 questions on medieval history. Okay. UPSC has started asking 2 to 3 or 3 or 4 questions in particular year, as far as the medieval history is concerned. So somewhere we can now see that ancient plus medieval, now 10 to 12 questions are coming. Right? That means the weightage of the ancient plus medieval history, it is acquiring a parity with the modern history. It is acquiring a parity with the modern history. Earlier, the modern history used to dominate completely. Right? Earlier, if the 15 to 20 questions have been asked in history in a prelims, so at least 12 to 15 questions will be from modern, and hardly 5 or 6 questions will be there from ancient and medieval. And as I told you, 3-4 years ago or even 5 years ago, if you look back, there were years in which in one particular year there was not a single question on medieval. There used to be the years in which particular year there will not be any question on medieval. That used to be the feature last 5-6 years ago, but now that is changing. On a regular basis now, the questions on the medieval India are increasing. Okay, so that's why this ancient plus medieval India becomes very important in a prelims itself. Okay? In a prelims itself, it becomes very important. So obviously now we have to keep in mind that what is the weightage and what is the importance which has been given by UPSC, or what is the new importance which UPSC wants to give to this section in the main examination. Okay? So if you see the main examination, then obviously we can see in a GS paper 1, okay, total marks for which the questions on history are asked, they are about 80 to 100 marks. Right? As we know, the GS paper 1, it is of 250 marks. Okay? So out of this 250 marks, total 80 to 100 marks, the questions will be asked on the history as a whole. And UPSC has clearly mentioned in the syllabus, okay, that it doesn't mention the name ancient and medieval history in main examination syllabus. But what UPSC mentions clearly is that it will be asking the questions. It will be asking the questions on art, architecture, and literature. Okay, plus culture as a whole. Okay? From ancient times to modern times. So that's why we have to keep in mind the focus of the UPSC is lying on the art and cultural aspects of the ancient history. Right? Art and cultural aspects of the ancient history as well as medieval history. So now this is a clear clue for us that how we have to approach, how we have to study the ancient and medieval history. So now both in prelims and mains it is clear that UPSC wants art and culture of ancient and medieval history. Okay? That means UPSC is not that much interested in a political aspect. So we have to be very, very clear that the battles, kings, and the political dynasties is not the exact focus as far as the UPSC is concerned. Rather, the art and cultural achievements which occurred under different dynasties or kings, right? That art and cultural achievements and the important features of the art and cultural achievements, they basically are expected by UPSC. This is what we have to keep in mind, right? As far as the ancient and medieval is concerned. And as I mentioned, in a main examination, the total 80 to 100 marks are asked as far as the history is concerned. Out of that 80 to 100 marks, we can see 50 to 60 marks on art and culture. Okay. That is ancient plus medieval. So we can easily see in both prelims as well as mains. We can easily see both in prelims as well as mains that the focus of the UPSC is clearly there as far as the ancient and medieval history is concerned. And ancient and medieval history means the art and culture part. So definitely the weightage is higher, and accordingly we have to prioritize our study. We have to manage our time, that how much time we should give as far as the study of these aspects of the history is concerned. Okay? Because these things are important to know, that how we can go for planning our study, how we can manage the time, how we can divide the time, okay, and where we can focus, which area we can give a priority. All these things are clear by we can say decoding all these aspects as the ancient and medieval history is concerned. Okay, so once we have seen that, now we can go to the next aspect, that is exactly what UPSC is going to ask, or exactly what UPSC has been asking over the years as far as the questions are concerned, both in prelims and mains is concerned. Okay? So first we will deal with the ancient history, and then we will come to the medieval history. So we will get the idea that basically what UPSC is expecting, what UPSC is asking over the years, and what it can ask in the future. So that will give us a clue that where we should touch, which areas we should focus as far as our study is concerned. So that will be the part and parcel of our evergreen theme of the UPSC. What to study, what not to study. Okay, this is the case. So first, ancient history, we will see it. So when we say ancient history, as I mentioned, out of total 5,500 years of Indian history, recorded Indian history, right? 3,500 years are covered only by ancient India. That means 3,500 BC, okay, to 500 AD. So 3,000 to 4,000 years. 3,000 to 4,000 years, they are covered only by ancient history, okay, as far as the whole long era of Indian history is concerned. The period between 500 AD to 700 AD, okay, that will be called as a late ancient era. Or transition era, okay, where the transition or gradual transformation was taking place from ancient to the medieval times. Okay? This is the case. But roughly, as we have the idea, as I mentioned, that largest chunk of Indian history has been covered by the ancient India. And obviously ancient India becomes most exciting because since it's ancient, whatever we study, that is only the tip of the iceberg, right? Because the vast amount of ancient India and the ancient history is still hidden under the layers of time. Since it's going back to long era, it is very, very difficult to reconstruct this history by using the different evidences and parameters. Okay? Still, a tremendous efforts have been done by the historians, especially after the independence, to unearth the different layers, the complex layers, as far as our ancient past is concerned. What our forefathers were doing, and how basically they shape our country, and how we are carrying their genes, how their cultural traits are being carried knowingly or unknowingly by us. That is what we have to see. And this is where the UPSC has the interest. This lies as an area of interest as far as the UPSC is concerned. So obviously this long history we have to master in a 6 broad categories or 6 broad topics. When we study these 6 broad topics, ancient India is covered from all angles. And obviously the focus is art and culture. Automatically these angles are going to be covered. So we will see the first topic. Okay. First topic that we have, Indus Valley civilization. Okay. Very important because this lays the foundation as far as the Indian history is concerned. Okay. And obviously Indus Valley civilization, since the word civilization is there, so automatically the very art and cultural development, the science and technological development, and development of the civilization including language will be visible as far as this one of the most ancient civilizations of the world and also one of the greatest ancient civilizations of the world. So here basically what UPSC will be asking from or expecting from the candidate. So based on the past year questions, both in pre and mains, we can get the idea what UPSC expects. So this civilization was very famous for its famed urbanization, most advanced urbanization of the ancient world. That's why the town planning and urbanization, this will be the focus area as far as the ancient history is concerned. Okay. Then after that, as a part of art and culture, UPSC has been asking and will ask the features of society. Yes, society itself shapes culture. Okay? Society itself shapes the culture. So the features of society will be asked, which will form the part of culture. And many of the features of the society of the Indus Valley and the cultural traits, they are still visible today among the Indians. We are somewhere carrying this legacy, knowingly or unknowingly, as I mentioned. That is what we have to study. Then important highlights of economy. Important highlights of the economy will be asked as far as the Indus Valley is concerned. Then UPSC will be asking about religion, and burial practices. Okay? As a part of culture. Religion and burial practices will be asked as a part of culture, because that also forms a culture as far as the Indian society is concerned. So today also many aspects of the religion and the burial practices which are followed in India, they will be similar to the Indus Valley. Then UPSC will be asking about science and technology. Then UPSC will be asking about science and technological achievements. This is also very important. Okay? And science and technology itself will be the part of culture. Yes, the culture itself gets shaped by the technological advancement, the scientific innovation. Okay? So the scientific mind and the intellectual thoughts, they will reflect the cultural aspects of the society of the time, and that's why it is very important. Okay? So these are the angles on which the questions will be asked, and then there will be questions on pure art forms. Okay? The pure art forms and specimens which we have found as a part of excavations and material evidences during the Indus Valley. Okay? So this will be definitely asked by the UPSC, and from that angle we have to study this very important and crucial topic, because it is the foundation of the Indian history, the very sequential aspect of the Indian history. Just like we have Facebook timeline, just like we follow the Facebook timeline, similarly Indian history has its own timeline, chronology and sequence, and without understanding the Indus Valley we cannot understand the next aspects or next pages of the Indian history. That's why it becomes very important. And if you see the weightage, then in a prelims 2 to 3 questions, and means 15 to 20 marks on average UPSC asks based upon the analysis of the past year question papers. Of course, these aspects are not going to be static, they will always change. Sometimes only one question can be asked, sometimes UPSC may not be asking any question. But on an average, if you see the past year question papers, we have these weightage as far as the Indus Valley civilization is concerned, and that's why it is very crucial for us. Okay, so this is the first case, and since I told you that in a 6 main topics we have to master the ancient India, this is the first topic. Now we can come towards second topic. If you see second topic is a Vedic period. Okay, and this Vedic period will be divided into two parts: Greek Vedic and later Vedic. Okay, this period will be divided into two parts: Rig Vedic and later Vedic. So again we can see in a Rig Vedic, background of Aryans. Right? Yes, this Vedic civilization was built, or Vedic culture was introduced in India by a people of a new race, a new language which they were speaking. Right? A group or a community speaking a new language, a new race, okay, which had come to India from outside, right? Which had come to India, or which had settled in India from outside. Right? So that's why the background of these Aryans, so-called new race, right? That is very, very necessary to understand. Of course, UPSC is not going to ask any question you upon background as such, but without understanding the background, we will not be able to understand the other things on which the questions are asked. So after background, we have to study political features. Okay, and as I mentioned you, UPSC doesn't have any interest in battles and political events as such. Right? UPSC, if it is asking the political features, it will be asking you about the democracies, right? The form of a political system, a kind of constitution, right? Whether there was a monarchy or democracy or not, what kind of institution was present in those times, whether what kind of administration was present in those times, right? That will be asked as far as the UPSC is concerned. So this is where we have to focus upon. Then UPSC will ask us about economic feature. Okay. And then about religion and cultural tradition. Okay. And one more aspect is social features. Okay, one more aspect is the social features. So again we can see in a Rigvedic period we have all these aspects where the focus has to be there. But of all these aspects, more importantly, it's about political and social features that is most important. Right? It is about the political and social features which are most important. The questions are asked normally by the UPSC on these aspects. Okay? So this one we have to keep in mind. Same thing is there in later Vedic period. Here the reasons or factors for transition from Rigvedic to later Vedic. Okay? They will be asked. UPSC will be asking the factors. What are the factors which ultimately brought the transformation from Rigvedic to later Vedic? Okay? From transformation from Rigvedic to later Vedic. So these factors will be asked. Then in later Vedic, again UPSC will ask about changes in political institutions, system or institutions, societal changes, economic changes. Okay, so these aspects will be very, very important. That how the political system of the later Vedic period differed from the Rigvedic period. and what were the reasons for that changes, that will be asked. What were the consequences of this change, that will be asked. Same will be the case about society. How the society of the later Vedic period was different from that of Rig Vedic period. What were the changes? What were the factors which led to these changes? What were the consequences? Whether the consequences were positive or negative, that will be asked to us. And all this is a part of culture. All this is a part of culture. Then the economic changes will be brought, because the economic changes themselves were responsible for bringing the social as well as political changes. So that's why the UPSC will be focusing upon that. Okay? So this is very crucial for us. Next feature will be Jainism and Buddhism, the very favorite topic of UPSC. Okay. Most important from art and culture perspective. Okay. Maximum number of questions have been asked, are being asked, and will be asked from these two topics. Okay. So we have to see background and basic features. Okay. Philosophies. Of both Buddhism and Jainism. We have to understand the similarity and differences as far as these philosophies were concerned. Okay. Then we have to see the practical utility or current relevance of this philosophy, where UPSC basically focuses. UPSC doesn't want us to master or to go for a kind of PhD into philosophical aspects of the Jainism and Buddhism, but still UPSC has been asking the questions in a very deep level. Why? Because these are the philosophies which have the power to transform the world. These are the philosophies which are very, very relevant to solve the current problems of the world. They are always relevant, they will remain relevant, and that's why for a humanity as a whole, for the progress of the humanity, the peace and tranquility in the world, equitable order of the world, these philosophies are very, very important. And that's why the UPSC will be asking and continue to ask these aspects. This is where the UPSC expects from us. Okay. Then obviously art, architecture and literature associated with Jainism and Buddhism. Okay. So that will form the major part as far as this UPSC syllabus, both for prelims and mains, is concerned. The most important topic, Jainism and Buddhism. So that's why we have to be very, very multi-dimensional to approach this topic, because this topic can be utilized anywhere, any subjects which UPSC has mentioned, be it Indian society, be it ethics, be it essay, polity and governance, social justice, international relations, internal security. Everywhere you can use these aspects of the Jainism and Buddhism, and that's why it is very, very crucial. Okay. So this is the third topic to master ancient India. Then the fourth topic which we have will be called as a Mauryan Empire. Okay. The most powerful empire as far as the ancient world of the time was concerned, and also the most powerful empire of ancient India, and also it was the very first empire which the India had built, a major reflection of the political power and might of India, a pride of India. So here we have to focus upon Of course, background will be there, okay, which will be called rise of Magad and Magad imperialism. Okay. But more importantly, since it was the first empire of India, the first concrete administration of India, the first concrete government system, okay, the first concrete political system will be visible in ancient India in a Mauryan Empire. And since we are attempting the administrative examination, so it becomes very, very important for us to understand the basic features of the administration of the time. Okay. So administration. In that we have city, military, general, provincial, revenue, judicial. Okay. All organs of administration and their basic features will have to be studied as far as the Mauryan Empire is concerned. This is a new area on which the UPSC has started asking the questions. It's not long ago that UPSC had asked the questions. Earlier there was a time that questions did not come from this area. But nowadays UPSC is focusing on touching the area. And that's why these areas are very, very crucial. Okay? In the Mauryan Empire, our focus should be here. Questions are coming, will be coming up. This is a new area. There are so many questions which can be asked by the UPSC from this area. So definitely it is going to be a favorite topic of the UPSC. Then Mauryan art and culture, art and architecture. In that Ashoka's pillar, stupa, sculpture, rock cut cave, all these features of the architecture will be asked. So this is also very crucial topic which we have to focus upon, both pre and mains. Whatever we are discussing, it is both pre and mains. Okay. So this is the fourth topic of the ancient India which we have to master, we have to command. Now the fifth topic, post-Mauryan period. Fifth topic will be post-Mauryan period. Okay. In a post-Mauryan period, again focus will be on cultural influence of foreign invasions. Okay. 6 schools of Indian philosophy. Okay. Then we have Buddhist and Jaina rock cut architecture. Okay. We have paintings, the very world famous Ajanta painting, okay, on which the questions will be asked. Okay. We have stupa, chaitya and vihara architecture. Okay. We have to study Gandhara School of Art, Mathura School of Art, Amaravati School of Art, School of Art and Sculpture. Okay. And we also have to see important literary developments. Okay. Buddhist and Jain literature. Okay, so Pali and Prakrit language. Okay, along with the literature, development of the language will also be visible to us as a part of overall development of the art and culture. So post-modern period is fully composed of pure or core art and culture features. Right? So already what we discussed in Jainism, Buddhism, again it will be applicable in this post-modern period. Right? Because the process of the art and culture which started from the Jainism, Buddhism era, that was continuing in this era also. It continued in the Mauryan Empire era also, and in a post-modern period also it was continuing. Right? And that's why this becomes a very crucial topic for us to understand the overall art and cultural developments, the dimensions of the art and cultural development. That will make our study of ancient India very holistic and comprehensive. Okay, this is the fifth topic. And the last topic to master ancient India. The last topic to master ancient India is a Gupta period. Last topic, as I mentioned, to master the ancient India is a Gupta period. Okay? So here what we have to study, just like background as usual. Okay? Then we have to focus upon administration. Why? It's just like we saw that Mauryas was the first ever empire of the ancient India, the first great empire of the ancient India. Similarly, Gupta was the second great empire of the ancient India. Right? But there were differences as far as the administrative systems, the form of political system and governance as far as both these empires were concerned. And these differences we have to understand. Okay? These differences we have to understand. So the dimensions and the organs will be same. Okay? We have to study general administration, provincial administration, okay? Then we have to study judicial administration, we have to study tax and revenue, we have to study military administration, and we have to study city administration. But focus will be that we will be studying the features of the Gupta period, and then we have to compare with Mauryan administration. Okay, we have to compare with the Mauryan administration, and we also have to see that ultimately which administration was better, or whether both these administrations had their own respective importance. Right? So that is what we have to see, and we also have to analyze critically whether these features of the administration which were different from the first one, right? Whether somewhere they were responsible for the decline of the Gupta Empire, right? The second great empire of India, which also brought the end to the ancient India also. Right? So this is where we have to focus. Okay? So this should be our focus. Then next, Gupta age is a golden age of art and culture. Okay? So Sanskrit literature, temple building, okay? Then fine arts, again we have sculpture, Ajanta painting, Ellora painting. Okay, these focus areas we have to study. When we come to South India, we have Pallava and Chalukya, the very late ancient period, Deccan and South India. Pallava and Chalukya dynasty. Okay, so we have both these dynasties had their own respective art and cultural development, right? And nowadays the UPSC has started asking the questions on the Pallavas and Chalukyas, because these two dynasties are very famous for building two different styles of temple building. The Pallavas build South Indian style of temple building, that is known as Dravida style, and the Chalukyas build the Deccan style of temple building, that is Vesara style. So the features of both these styles will be asked, and that's why the Pallava and Chalukya period is very, very important. And once we study the Pallavas and Chalukyas, then as I mentioned, the ancient India will come to an end. So total 6 topics we are covering, the 3500 to 4000 years of Indian history, right? A great cultural legacy. And then this period will later on give that space and scope for transition as far as the advent of medieval India is concerned. And the advent of medieval India itself is very exciting. The whole medieval India itself is very exciting. So that is what now we will see, that what we have to focus upon as far as the medieval area is concerned. Okay. Okay, so in medieval India also our focus is going to be art and cultural developments. So medieval India will normally start from 700 AD and it will last up to 1800 AD, okay, or mid okay. So it's like a 1000 years of tradition, right, as far as the medieval India is concerned. And the medieval India, our focus will again be on the different aspects which brought the transformation from ancient to medieval India. Okay? The rise of Rajput, okay, and Rajput art and culture, that is very important for us. Okay? That what was the development of literature, basic, okay? And UPSC will ask only those areas which are important for administration purpose, okay? Or which had a long lasting impact on Indian culture, okay? Or from where we get the information about the society, political structure and economy of the time, okay? Only these aspects UPSC will be asking. Architecture, okay, painting, etc. Okay, then causes for defeat of Rajput, okay, at the hands of Arabs and Turks. Okay? These causes are very, very important. So when we say that India was transforming or transition from ancient to medieval era, the very Rajputs, their rise and their very defeats at the hands of foreign invaders, that is Arabs and Turks, okay? That basically changed the very context of India. That basically changed the very history of India, that we have to keep in mind. And these Arabs and Turks, okay, these were foreign races and brought new religion, He brought new religion, it is Islam. Okay? They brought with them the new religion, that is Islam. And with the advent of Islam, the Islamic culture, Islamic art and culture also became the feature of India. Okay? So that's why we have to study cultural impact of Arab invasion. Okay? The cultural impact of the Arab invasion, UPSC will be asking the questions. Okay? Same is the case. In case of Turks, the impact was going to be broader. In case of Turks, impact was going to be long lasting. Okay? It was going to change the very context of India with the very socio-religious and cultural composition of India. Okay? Turco-Arabic, Persian, socio-cultural traits, okay? And emergence of Indo-Islamic culture, okay? Emergence of Indo-Islamic culture, that will be the focus area as far as the medieval India is concerned. Okay? So from this perspective, the UPSC is asking the question. From these dimensions, the UPSC is expecting that we can say the thought process as far as the candidate is concerned. Okay? That it is expecting from these angles and from this thought process perspective, the candidate has to think. Okay? He has to develop his ideas. Okay? He has to develop his understanding. This is the case. Okay. Now we will come to the how these Turks and Arab, they established their rule and how the art and cultural development took place. Okay? What were the administrative achievements? That is also we will focus. Okay? So medieval India, it will be divided into two parts. First half of the medieval India is a Delhi Sultanate. Okay? We had 5 dynasties. In 230 years or 320 years of a long era, we had 5 dynasties, right? And different efficient rulers as far as the Delhi Sultanate was concerned. Again, as I told you, focus of the UPSC is not on battles, not on the political events, okay? But what were the achievements of the rulers? And that achievement will be the art and cultural achievement also, and that achievement will be the administrative achievement also, or military achievement in the context of administration. Okay? This is what we have to see. So we have to study. We will go as per the sultans. Okay? We will go as per the sultans. We have to study Qutbuddin Aibak, okay? And Iltutmish as the founders, okay? And their administrative and cultural achievement. Okay. Then we have Balban. Okay. His military, administration and Persianization of Delhi Sultanate. Okay. These 2 areas we have to focus. Then we have the greatest Sultan of Delhi, Alauddin Khilji. Okay. So his market reforms, military reforms, land revenue reforms, okay, plus art and culture highlight. Okay. Then we have Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Okay. His policies administrative failures. Okay. In case of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, his policies and administrative failures we have to see. Then we have Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Sikandar Lodi and Sher Shah Suri. His welfare policies, administrative achievements, and for Sher Shah Suri, administration, okay, currency reforms, communication revolution, okay, land revenue reforms. So many dimensions of the achievements were there. So all these achievements we have to see, okay, as a part of overall administrative and art and cultural achievement. And then we have to study art and cultural features under Delhi Sultanate. Okay. So features of architecture, okay, music and painting, literature. Okay. So these are the features we have to study as far as the Delhi Sultanate is concerned. Okay. Then we have to come towards Mughal Empire. Okay. Then we have to come towards Mughal Empire. But the very transition of Delhi Sultanate to Mughal Empire was mainly due to Bhakti and Sufi movement. Okay. So their philosophy and cultural contribution, okay, is very, very important, as UPSC asks the questions from Bhakti and Sufi movement. Okay. Bhakti saint and their philosophy, Sufi saint and their philosophy. Okay. And what was the practical utility? What was the practical utility? As far as these philosophies were concerned. Okay. What was the practical utility as far as this philosophy was concerned? Okay. How it brought Hindu-Muslim unity. How it brought Hindu-Muslim unity. Okay. And composite culture, how it was developed. Okay. Tolerant and peaceful religious society, how it was developed. All this will be asked in a Bhakti and Sufi movement. Okay. Then we have come towards Mughal Empire. Okay. So background, it is Babur and Humayun. Okay. Their achievement or failure we have to see. Then we have to focus on Akbar as national monarch. Okay. So Akbar's social reforms, military reforms, okay. Then we have land revenue reforms, Akbar's art and culture, Okay. Secularism and religious tolerance we have to focus upon, as far as the Akbar is concerned. And then our focus will be Mughal art and culture. Okay. Then our focus will be Mughal art and culture, literature, music, painting, and then architecture. Okay. And the contribution of the respective Mughal rulers as far as these different dimensions are concerned. So once these aspects are studied, then in a comprehensive manner and a holistic manner, we are going to cover the medieval India. Okay? We are going to cover the medieval India. At the end, to maintain the continuity and sequence, we just have to focus upon causes for decline of Mughal. Okay? And the rise of Maratha and Sikhs. Okay? That we will study at the end as a part of continuity and sequence as far as the medieval India and its transition to modern India is concerned. Because with the approach or with the advent of modern India, we have the new power which was emerging in India, that is East India Company. Okay? The British East India Company, a new foreign race was coming to India. Okay? And that race was coming from small island of Europe, that is Great Britain. And this race was going to dominate not only India but the whole world as far as the British Empire was concerned. Okay? And that was again going to change the very context of history of India and world history as a whole also. Okay? But from the perspective of the examination, as whatever we discussed today in ancient India and modern India, this will, again I will repeat, will form the very bedrock and the foundation of your overall understanding and approach towards UPSC and cracking the UPSC also. And at the same time, from the perspective of the questions, the type of questions, the weightage of the questions, okay, the areas on which the questions are being asked, ancient and medieval India is very, very crucial. So once you master these two topics, both for pre and mains, your success in UPSC is assured. Okay. So I am definitely sure that you must have enjoyed this session also. So you should clearly keep in mind all the dimensions and aspects which we discussed in the session, and that is going to give you and assure you a success in UPSC and fulfill your dream to become an IAS. Okay. So on this note, again I would like to take your leave in these testing times of the COVID-19. Be safe, be responsible, help and support each other, and we will collectively overcome this crisis, and you will also achieve the success in a UPSC. So on this note, I would like to take your leave again. Thank you very much. Have a good day. We will meet again. Thanks a lot.